just going to click on a couple of things. Right, so the purpose of today's brief Qualoupe class is to have a little look at the different parameter types that you can set. I think they're actually called result types, but it's the same thing anyway, is defining in advance when you're setting up your methods what the data is going to be, what format you expect the data to be entered in. So if I go to, can you all see the screen okay, by the way?
Yeah, fine.
So if I go to the method manager, which I already got open in this tab, create a new record, and I shall call this, I'm never very creative when it comes to thinking of names for these things. Self-explanatory anyway. So when you create a new parameter, as well as giving it a name, so I'll call this one numeric result, this is what we're looking at here, is this little result type drop down. The default is free text, but if I click down you can see we have a number of different options, and each of these is the type of data that you expect to be entered into this parameter, so you can control what goes in. So for example, if I've said numeric results, if I say numeric, if later on this method is applied to a sample, you're not able to put text or date or anything else in there. It's expecting a number. Because it's numeric, and I think most of the time this is the one that you're going to be using, because most of these results you're going to put in are actually going to be numeric test results. So when it's a numeric result, you get to set things like the decimal precision, so I'll stick in here 2 for 2 decimal places, and you can choose the units you want. Let's make it kilos. Also, I should point out, this is not part of the result type here, but we have a mandatory flag. I just point that out in passing, that if that's checked, it means that the sample, if this method's on a sample, you have to enter a result for this parameter. You can uncheck that for optional parameters. So what that means is your sample can advance to sort of validated and approved without having a result entered for that parameter. But by default it's checked, so I thought I'd just point it out. So if I save this, so there's numeric result. If I create a new parameter, let's have a look at a calculation. I'm not going to go into great detail about calculations in this class. I think we'll look at them a bit more in depth later. When I selected calculation, you see this little tab here popped up. So I'm going to save it and then go in and play with my calculation. I'm just going to keep this simple for the purpose of this class, and because it's a calculation, I then have to say, right, I've got to create a blank calculation, so I'm going to click on here and type in a calculation. So I'm going to insert a new reference, which is going to be my numeric result. This is going to be very, very simple, this one. And I think I'll multiply it by 100. Very exciting. So I shall save that. And I'm going to create another new parameter, which is pick list. And again, I don't know if you saw that if I go back to free text, there's no tab there. If I go to pick list, my little tab appears. So the result type that you choose determines whether or not you get other tabs appearing and what the tabs are. So a pick list is, say you have a result and you want your analysts in the lab to have a look at something and enter a result which is like an evaluative result. They say something like pass or fail, or if they're looking for microbial growth or something, present or absent. something that just requires a text reply, but you want to sort of define a list that they choose from. So we can supply them with a pick list. So if I click on Add New Entry, what shall I put in here? Let's put some colours in here. White, New Entry, pink. I don't know what I'm testing here, if it's going to come out all these peculiar colours, but just to give you an idea. That'll do, I think. So if I go back into that to edit it, you can see these are all set to pass. So we've got a column here called Accept, set as pass. But if I said, well, these are all things that it could be, they might be a bit unlikely, my example, but these are all results we could possibly get. However, we want the pink to pass and the other two to fail. So if I highlight the row and I click Control, I can select more than one and set those as fail. The little tick changes to a cross. I have to keep going out and in again. So what's happening now is when we enter a result for this, if we select pink, then this will pass. If we select white or blue, then this parameter is going to fail. You can actually set one of these to be the default parameter as well. So if I click on this, you see we've got a second tick. And the third thing I want to point out in here is at the bottom here we've got a little checkbox, allow free text entry. So you can force people to select from white, blue or pink, but if you have free text entry checked, you then have another option, free text causes the parameter to fail. So for example, if your pick list items were pass and then you didn't have a fail one, but you allowed free text entry, your users would either have to select the entry pass or type something else in, and if I was to tick that, whatever else they type in, as in a reason why it hasn't passed, would cause the parameter to fail. So it gives you a little bit of flexibility on how you set this up. So I'm going to save that. Okay, so if I go to a new parameter and we click on this drop-down list, we've got a selection of different result types. So we've got date, time, file, checkbox and colour. Well, I'm not going to run through all of these. I'll just run through one at random, so we'll have date. Because I've got another parameter that I set up elsewhere. Sorry, another method I set up elsewhere to save me showing you each one individually. So if I go into date anyway, there's no mysterious tabs appear or anything like that. Oh, we've got a ping. Is that somebody else joining in? It's Perigo. Hello.
Yes, hi, Alison.
Hi, guys at Perigo.
Sorry for a slightly late arrival. Do carry on.
Oop, that's okay. What I was going to say was if we choose a result type of date and time, date, time, file, checkbox, colour, you don't get any tabs or anything appearing. You just choose it and that's that. So it would be very boring to show you all of them. Just a very brief recap for the late joiners. I've set up a numeric result. So this parameter is expecting a result that's a number. I've set up a calculation, and when you set the result type to calculation, a little calculation tab appears in which you can define your calculation, and that's just a simple one for the purposes of this Qualoupe class, but we will look at calculations in more depth later. Probably in more than one class, I would think. The pick list option, again, once you've selected that, you get a pick from a list tab appears, and if I go to that, you can add new entry, so I'll add another one. Lord knows what I'm testing here. Something very peculiar. Pick from a list, and if I go into here, if I set that one as fail, I just like to save it as I go along, which means I have to flick out and in again, but at least I know it's saved. So in this list of 4 colours, only pink will pass, but we do have an option of free text entry at the bottom. And then we have date, and if I created new parameters, is it going to do it? I can choose from these other options here. So, in order to sort of speed things up a bit, what I did was, in true Blue Peter fashion, here's one I created earlier. Oops, yes, because I didn't save changes to my other one. There we go. So, here's a parameter types method that I created earlier. So in here I've got free text, and I've even gone to the bother of putting in a description as well. Displays a large free text block where the user may enter comments and notes. Numeric, calculation, oops, it's decided to go slow at this point. And you can see while it's thinking about that, I have pick from a list, date and time, date, time, file, checkbox and colour. So in other words, in my little demonstration method here, which I've already created, I've just chosen one of each of the 10 different types, and I've named the parameter for the type, just so it's easy for me to identify when I'm demoing it. This method is approved. So previously to this class, if I go to my second tab up here and go to the sample manager, I've added that method to some samples already, so I'll just go and find them. Luckily there's not an awful lot of data in here, so it's in the provisional ones. Okay, so I'll just close that. So you can see here is, I've got one method on this sample, which is parameter types, and this is how these all appear in a results entry context. Everybody happy with that so far? Because I've flicked from one app to the next, just make sure you're all keeping up. Okay, so this is what free text looks like. So I can type in any old result into here. The sample looked fine to me. So you can type in long bit of text. I'm not quite sure how long this is. I think off the top of my head it's 2,000 characters, I think. It's quite long anyway. I don't think we're going to get to a limit to it, so you can go in here, you know, blah, blah. If you want to change your, like with all these results entry fields, if you want to change your mind what you type, if you click in this little X, you can clear it and just put something else in here. Oops, if you can spell. Okay, so the next one is our numeric type. You can see it's a number because there's a little sigma in here. So I could just type in a numeric result. It's thinking about it. You can also put in some maths. So if I put in 2 plus 2, it should put in the 4 for me automatically. Did you spot that? So where a field is numeric, you can type in a number or you can type in some light maths. So if you're, it's like a little calculator, a simple calculator built in. So if you're typing in results that you're calculating on the fly, you know, you're taking a reading and you're multiplying it by something, you can actually do that directly in the field. So I can multiply it by 2. I click on enter, it performs the calculation.
Would it show anywhere that that had originally been entered as a calculation rather than a single figure?
No, it doesn't. No, it's just for convenience. You know, if I mean, I'm just did a simple calculation. If you were, it's say if you're popping up a Windows calculator basically to perform a little calculation. It's just a sort of little convenient tool. But until you actually save the result to the database, you're just doing it in memory. So there isn't an audit trail of that until I come up here and click on the Save Changes.
Okay.
So because my calculation was very simple and it was just numeric result times 100, as I've typed in my result here, it just performs the calculation automatically and quite quickly as well. So you can see the calculation field is greyed out because you can't type into that. That is based on other data and the calculation being performed. Okay, so here's my pick list, and I've got a little down arrow to indicate there's a drop down. So if I click on this, On this one, my colours were sort of a scale from white through to brown, so it might be a bit more plausible than my Smarty colours on my other one. So I know that if I choose white, that's my default one, and that'll be fine. If I choose brown, it doesn't like that because that's one of the ones that I've set to fail, and you can see it's failed the parameter. It shades in the background. A little information button on the end will tell you it's failed that. If I click on Fill with Defaults, I set white to be the default, also when I was setting up the parameter, so you can see that that automatically went in. So in other words, you could set up, if you're testing lots and lots of parameters on a method, you could set up your default to be pass, and then you can just change it to something else if it's fail. However, obviously if you've got something like that, you've got to be careful that your users aren't just going to be lazy and just click on that and go, yeah, this will do, click. So it's up to you whether you want to use it or not. Because there is the possibility that people will just bung in an answer without actually thinking about what they're putting in there. Always a slight danger. I shall save this as I go along. So here's the other ones that I mentioned, but I didn't really go into setting up. So we've got date and time. So if I click on the little calendar box, I can choose a date and time. There we are, it's 1st of August, and in there I can ramp the time up, ramp the time down. I can put the cursor in there and edit it. I'm not sure where we'd want it down to the second, but there you go. So in exactly the same way, date is just the date portion, time is just the time portion. So if you wanted to put in, I don't know, an expiry date, a date of manufacture, anything like that, you could just create a date parameter. So it's not necessary to include the time. So you get both together if that's crucial, or you can have one or the other. Or in this case of this demo method, I've got all three types. If I click on the calendar, and you start clicking through here, thinking it's going to take me an awfully long time to get back to, 2008 or something. If you click on the actual year, you can just select the year from a pull down like that. So 1st of January 2008. So it took me a little while to find that myself, and I thought, oh, this is a bit slow, but just click on the year and you can change the year itself. Let's change that to, yeah. Okay, so I think the dates and times are quite self-explanatory. Upload a file. So say for example you got some raw materials from a supplier, and they sent you a standard operational procedure, a certificate of analysis to certify the testing of the product they'd sent you, and they might be a trusted supplier, so you think, well, I don't actually need to retest what they're sending me, or not all the time. They've sent me an electronic version of the COA. All I need to do is just upload it, so I know that it's associated with this sample. So if you click on Upload a File, we can browse and find a file, SOP. Why did I put SOP? I'm talking about COAs. Too many acronyms here. Never mind, I'll put in it SOP. And attached file. Right, I'm not actually going to upload the file because I know that runs a bit slow and I'm trying to sort of not drag this on. But you can see what I did. I clicked on the Upload a File button, choose my file, stick in a title and a description. If I click on that, it'll upload it. And then what happens is the formatted result will contain a link to the file, the URL to the file, and the status will go to V, so you can complete the sample. But I know that that's a little bit slow on my PC, so I'm not doing it at the moment. Okay, so here's another one. Here's a checkbox. So I've just got checkbox here. If I check it, it tells me it's checked. It's a little Boolean. So you could say something like, has COA been received? Tick. And it's just to check that you've actually had it. So using the same example, if your supplier sent you some raw materials, but they didn't give you an electronic COA, they just provided you with a printed one, you could just say, yes, we've got it, tick. Anything you can think of where they just want to enter a yes-no type reply. The final one, I didn't think of a brilliant use for this, but somebody else suggested this to me. What you do with this one is you click on colour and you can choose a pretty colour. What should we have? Pink. Lovely. So there are a couple of things to note here. Someone said, oh, that's quite good, because what you can do is you can set traffic lights, if you like, green, orange and red. So you can use the colour for defining a status. It is possible, you can see, actually I'm hovering the mouse, I've just moved it now so you can't see it, it shows the hex code of the colour you've selected. It is possible to convert the hex code into a colour to show on a crystal report. So if you can think of a use for it, it's there, but the only suggestion I've found so far was traffic lights. So it's a nice visual aid, and you open this sample and you can see that straight in front of you, so you might just use it for something like that. I think, to be honest, it's been added because the facility is there to do it, so why not? Someone might find a use for it. So, save my changes. So, that's a quick whip through the different result types. So, if anyone's got any questions, I'll stop my recording of this now, but I'll hang around and answer questions if you'd like to ask any. So, thanks for all popping in anyway.